There are several ways to start and stop free motion stitching. Set up your machine for free motion. Attach the single hole needle plate and the free motion foot of your choice. Select the Home key, Applications, Quilting, and Free Quilting. With the straight stitch plate attached to the machine, there's only two choices available. Straight stitch 1 uses the PDH or the hopping foot. When the foot up key is activated, it turns dark. Now every time you stop stitching, the foot will raise. Use this feature when stitching in areas where the fabric needs to be adjusted frequently. The one stitch off key will toggle between continuous stitching or stopping after just one stitch. Setting this to the single stitch allows you to pull the bobbin thread to the top before stitching. It eliminates knots or stitching over the needle thread on the back of the quilt. The feed dogs are automatically lowered with the straight stitch 1. However, many quilters like to stitch with the feed dogs up, giving a little more control. Straight stitch 2 uses the QO or QC feet and automatically lowers the feed dogs with no option to raise them. You also have a foot height adjustment with straight stitch 2. Use the minus or plus to lower or raise the presser foot. It should just skim the surface of the quilt. If it's too high, you get skip stitches or frayed thread. If it's too low, the foot will drag on the quilt, making it hard to move. Insert a Janome purple needle and thread your machine with bobbin and needle thread of your choice. Foot up is activated, as well as one stitch off. The foot height is adjusted to just skim the top of the quilt. Take one stitch, pull the bobbin thread to the top and hold both threads under the presser foot. Lower the needle into the fabric at the beginning stitch. Anchor the threads by taking one stitch at the starting point. Move the fabric and take one stitch. Move back to the starting point for the next stitch. Now move in the opposite direction for a stitch and then back to the starting point. Now continue with the free motion design for a few stitches. Stop stitching. Tug both the needle and bobbin threads and clip close to the fabric. This technique ties a small knot at the beginning of the stitching and keeps the ends from pulling out. For a cleaner beginning, or where you do not want stitches knotted on the quilt, pull the needle and bobbin threads to the top, leaving long tails. Continue stitching the design, being careful not to stitch over these threads. At the end of stitching, thread both threads through an embroidery needle and pull to the back of the quilt. Make a small overhand knot. Place the tip of the needle in the center of the knot, then into the fabric at the stitch. Now pull the knot tight around the needle. Now put the point of the needle at the last stitch and slide the needle between the layers. Give the thread a quick tug to bury the knot. Pull the thread snugly and clip close to the fabric. This buries the thread tails, giving a nice look to both the front and back. There are several ways to end your stitching. The fastest and easiest is to take a few stitches close together back and forth to secure the stitching, then use the thread cutter. This pulls the needle thread to the back and cuts both the needle and the bobbin thread, leaving short tails. The second way is to slide the quilt over a few inches from where you stopped stitching and touch the thread cutter. This leaves a long tail on the top as well as the back. Thread an embroidery needle with the needle thread and push to the back at the point where the stitching stopped. Tie the needle and bobbin threads together, then thread both threads through the needle and bury them between the layers. The third way is often used by frame quilters. Take a few tiny stitches to lock the threads. Raise the needle and presser foot. Slide the quilt over a few inches. Grab the needle thread and pull out a little. Now slide the quilt back and lower the needle at the ending point. Raise the needle and pull the needle thread. This pulls the bobbin thread to the top. Notice that the bobbin thread will be looped around the needle thread. There are 3 threads pulled out from this last stitch. Tug all 3 threads and clip close to the fabric. Now there are no tails on the front or the back. Choose your favorite method to start and end free motion quilting.